going on, guys? Snag here, and today we're talking Brisbane Broncos, Penrith Panthers. Can Penrith go 4 in a row? Can the Broncos go one better? Will Broncos slide? Will Penrith slide? Let's talk about it. I just cannot wait. 4 weeks to go, lads. 4 weeks to go. Now, I want to hear your guys' thoughts on this. Do you think Penrith are going to go 4 in a row? Do you think Broncos are going to go one better? Do you think they're going to slide? I'd love to hear what your guys' thoughts are on this one. So drop those in the comments, sub, like, all that good stuff. You know I love it, so keep it coming. Now, before we get into this, let's get some energy in me. Oh, yeah. Nectar of the gods right there. All right, so there's 2 reasons I really wanted to do this video. Number one, it was my most requested video. No, well, not. It was just everyone was like, hey, do you think Penrith are going 4 in a row? Do you think Broncos are done? Do you think Broncos can go one better? All that sort of stuff. And the second reason is I'm so sick of all the media outlets just talking about the bad teams. So I want to give the good teams their flowers. You know what I'm saying? I want to talk about how good the good teams are, not how bad the bad teams are, or can the bad teams make their way out. Like, who cares? Let's talk about the good teams, the teams that deserve to be spoken about. And Broncos and Penrith deserve to be spoken about. I reckon on that Fox 360, I reckon they talked about the Bulldogs more in the semi-finals than any other team. Maybe the Broncos got a little bit more coverage. That was about it. There was more articles about the Bulldogs going on than any other team. So, hell with that. Let's talk about the good stuff. All right, so we know how the grand final went. It was very close. One of the best probably the best grand final I've ever witnessed. I enjoyed it more than anything else. And, yeah, it was damn close. Now, we'll sort of start with the Broncos, and then we'll move on to the Penrith Panthers. All right, so let's start with the Broncos. Now, I have to give the Broncos their flowers because I've been pretty critical of them in the past, and I think they deserved it. But, hey, Brisbane Broncos were the best rugby league team I have ever seen not win a premiership. And I'm talking from round 1 to the grand final. They played from the minute the whistle from the very first game blew to the final whistle in the grand final. I have never seen a team so good from start to finish not win a grand final. Like, we've seen teams like Parramatta in 2009, they went on hot runs, and yeah, they looked better than Melbourne during that period, but Melbourne ended up getting the bickies. But Broncos from start to finish, I mean, let's break it down. They won the same amount of games as the best team in the modern era at worst. I think they deserve more than that. They had the same amount of wins. For and against wasn't as good, but hey. And then grand final, 3 tries each. Only 2-point penalty goals separated them. And just this is what really shows the big difference. I mean, 13 plus against the Warriors, who were running hot, and then 26-0 against the Storm the week before. 2 13s. That means the 3rd and 4th best team, they smoked by 13 plus. And they came away with nothing. In fact, I'd almost argue it's worse getting to a grand final and losing than maybe losing in the semis, because your team gets rated, as it has. Everyone's value goes up. I tell you now, Broncos got knocked out first round of the grand final. They wouldn't have to pay Ezra Mam as much. They won't have to pay Reece Walsh as much. So now your salary cap gets smashed, you get rated, and you still don't have a trophy. So it sort of sucks for the Broncos, man. It sort of sucks. But look, at the end of the day, like I said, giving them their flowers. That was, in my opinion, the best rugby league team, the best performance, the best year I've seen from a rugby league team that never won a grand final, that didn't come away with anything other than 2nd place, which may as well be last, baby. You may as well be last. All right, so getting that out of the way, how they're going to go this year. I mean, they've got plenty of losses, all right? So this is their possible team list for the start of next year. I mean, it's still got strike. I mean, we've lost Kurt Capewell, we've lost Flegler, we've lost Herbie, and is it Palacia? I always get him mixed up with the other guy, but yeah, it was Palacia from the bench as well. Now, I said this in a previous video, talking about the top 8, how the Broncos will go. I think there will be an adjustment period. Just like if you look at Penrith last year, losing Kickow and Coruscant, they weren't as great in the first 8 games. Like, they looked unstoppable the second half of the season, but there was a feeling out period at the start. So we'll go over the start of their roster and what it looked like, start of their draw, and see what it looks like. But look, there's still so much strike here. Reece Walsh and Ezra Mann are going to break a few close games open on their own. You know what I mean? So just having those two guys in your team, it's like the Munster effect. You know, like if you're close and you got Cam Munster in the team, you're going to be pretty confident that you're going to get the dub. You know, sort of thing. So yeah, absolutely brilliant team still. But the one thing I was worried about was Palacia and Flegler going. That's, you know, you lost your best bench forward and well, he's not your best prop, but you know what I mean? No, maybe not equal as Payne Haas, but you get what I'm saying. You know, like they're both very high quality, both starting front rowers for their state and they both played for Australia as well. So that's going to be a big loss. So the one thing I'm a little worried about is the meters. Obviously, we know Payne Haas is going to run a ton, but where else do the meters come from? Paddy Carrigan's solid meters, but Herbie Farnsworth, as far as the outside back five go, that he was probably their biggest meter eater. So they're missing some meters for sure. And obviously, the other thing I'm a little worried about is it Pikura? Is the other guy? Yeah, Pikura. Beast, love him. I said from the start, I think he's better than Jordan Ricky anyway. And I was like, when Jordan Ricky got injured, I'm like, I don't think he's going to get his spot back because that Piakura guy is a monster. But we have to see him on defense. We'll have to see how he shores up that edge if they do, in fact, run out like this. I do love keeping Pat Carrigan at 13 and not putting him in a prop. He isn't a big body. And I just think him and Isaiah Yeo are the two best locks in the game. So why move him just because you're missing a prop sort of thing. So, you know, Fletcher Baker or Corey Jensen, whoever it ends up being, has to really step up. I'm not a huge fan of Fletcher, but Corey Jensen's one of those guys, like he's not going to blow you away, but if he can just come on, run for 140 metres and not make errors, tackle, not miss tackles, not make penalties, I mean, it's still a pretty solid forward pack sort of thing. So, solid. Solid. I like it. So we'll have a look at the Broncos start. So there will be a filling out process for the Broncos. Losing 4 players, it is solid. It is a solid amount of players, and they do have a pretty tough start, all right? So do have Roosters in Vegas, then they come back and play the Bunnies, then they've got the Panthers, then they've got the Cowboys. It is at home, but still Cowboys, you know, it's going to be tough. Then they have the Storm, and then they have the Dolphins. Now, Dolphins isn't necessarily a tough game, but you know Dolphins are going to play harder against the Broncos than any other team, so I'd still call it a hardish game. So pretty rough start for the Bronx, okay? So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, I'd say 5.5 tough games to start the year. They're going to want to start strong. They're really going to want to start strong. And then if we come down to, I like to really check this how you start and how you finish your season, because the middle can just sort of go anyway. You're going to drop games and random games and stuff in there just because you're tired or you don't take a team serious and all that sort of stuff. But you always take the start and the end seriously. All teams do. So they finished with the Storm. They got the Dolphins. They got Parramatta. This depends whether it's a hard game, what Parramatta show up, and then they've got a bye, and then they've got the Cowboys. So I wouldn't. This is, again, it's not super tough, but it's relatively tough. It's not super hard, but I wouldn't call that an easy run home by any means. Definitely not. Now we can check the strength of schedule as well, how many top 8 teams they play from last year, this year. Now this can be a bit of a false indicator. It says 10, Penrith and Broncos both have 10. Now for me, the reason it can be a false indicator, last year, you know, that said, oh, so-and-so only plays, 10, top 8 teams from last year, but there was 3 teams last year that were pretty bad that were in the top 8 the year before. So people think, the Sharkies, they've only played 9 top 8 teams from last year. But what if those teams end up being trash and the other teams are really good? So you don't really know. It can be a bit of a false indicator, but by all means, they've got a pretty easy draw. The 2 best teams in the comp by a mile last year have some of the easiest draws. That's pretty damn crazy, man. Pretty damn crazy. But yeah, so pretty favourable draw, tough start, pretty easy middle, and a tough-ish run home sort of thing. So yeah, it's going to be hard. Now, if we have a look Let's have a look at the odds for the Broncos to win the grand final, 435. Now that is actually shorter than Penrith were last year, believe it or not. Penrith were 450 last year. I picked them up before the start of the year. And Penrith Panthers are shortened right up to 375, which is pretty damn crazy. Now, let's have a look at top four, because, Broncos do have a bit of a... let's have a look at minor premiership, 375, 325. And let's have a look at top four finishes. They're both very short. So the bookies, I think, are pretty bang on here. They should both finish in the top four. I think that's pretty damn safe. And those odds are pretty damn right. The grand final ones probably are a little short. Think about it. 375 isn't a crazy payout, and there's so much that can happen in a rugby league year. Like Fisher Harris, Moses Leota, and Nathan Cleary all go down. They're not winning the comp. You know what I mean? It's just, yeah, so it's pretty short for how much stuff could happen, sort of thing. But as far as the actual odds go, I think it's pretty fair. I think that's probably where both teams deserve to be. And I dare say they should both finish in the top 8. I think Broncos could drop a spot or two, not because I think they're going to be heaps worse with the players they miss. I just think Broncos, they definitely... When I say they had an easy run last year, I don't mean their draw was easy or anything like that. They actually had a relatively hard draw, but they got really lucky with injuries and just bits and pieces like that. Even when Reece Walsh got banned for 3 games, one of them was an Origin game, so only lost 2. They didn't have any players injured for longer than 2-3 weeks. I think Jordan Ricky was out for 5 weeks, but all that did was give Piakura game time and show us how good he is. I think Fleggs was out for 2 weeks. I think Haas was out for 2 weeks. I think Reynolds had 2 or 3 games throughout the year where it was just one game, just tightness and stuff like that. They never had for example, Rabbitohs had Latrell out for 8 weeks. Parramatta had Dylan Brown out for 7 weeks. Even Nathan Cleary was out for 5 weeks, and Jerome Luai was out for 4 weeks over the finals. They didn't really have any of that adversity to sort of handle. They were very lucky with that, and they seemed to whenever it was just, and it's not their fault. They didn't do anything wrong. It was just whenever they had a big game, they always had their big lads on day. When Payne, Haas, and Fleggs were injured or whatever, there was just they were playing, someone like the Bulldogs or the St George or something like that. They just seemed, when they did have players genuinely injured, they just seemed to be playing easy teams, and that's just the way the cookie crumbles, man. There's nothing wrong with that. It was almost like the perfect year for them. It's not like they had no one get injured, but they were just niggly injuries that needed a week or 2 off, and they seemed to be playing poor teams whenever they happened. It was just awesome. So that could definitely, not happen this year. They could definitely lose key players at key times. Stuff like that, but fingers crossed they don't. I wish we could click our fingers and make it so no superstars could ever get injured ever again. That would be brilliant, but it's not the way it works. And I do expect that surely with just with Reynolds' age and the way those the amount of minutes those big lads play in the middle, and Payne Haas barely misses games. He plays 65 minutes in the middle every game. It's crazy, absolutely crazy. So I would push. I'll say where I think they'll finish sort of next, but move on to Penrith. If we have a look at their strength of schedule is the same, 10 top 8 teams from last year. If we have a look at their start and their end, again, it looks like a pretty roughish start. You do not want to play Melbourne Storm round 1. I don't think they've lost a round 1 game in 17 years or something like that. It's something ridiculous, 12 years or something. Something crazy. It's actually probably the one team you don't want to play round 1. They're going to smack it in, but Penrith are pretty good at breaking records as well, so I wouldn't be surprised if they get the dub there. Then they have Parramatta, which is you know what I mean? It could be a tough game, or they could win 28-6. And then they've got the Broncos round 3 in Penrith. Damn. And then we have the Roosters, then Sea Eagles, then a bye, and then it starts to get into the little bit more easier stuff, I guess you could sort of say. But pretty toughish start. Having said that, though, it's nothing they can't handle. I know whoever they're playing is more worried about them than they are of them sort of thing. And let's have a look at their run home. To me, it's very important. All right, so when's their last bye? Round 19, so pretty, not too early, not too late. It's a sort of in the middle there. They have Dolphins, St George, Knights, Parramatta again. Coin toss whether it's going to be a tough game or not. All right, so last 4 games is Storm, Raiders, Bunnies, Tigers. That's a much easier run home than Broncos have, in my opinion. Not much easier, but definitely easier, especially if they knock off Para and Storm here, and then they come into these sort of, 3 games. Even if they drop the Bunnies one, they're still going to rack up a lot of points. A lot of points. They get 2 byes nice and close together. That sucks for the Cowboys having to play them coming off a bye. Ouch. Ouch. Yeah, that sucks. That sucks. Oh, Tigers have to play Penrith coming off a bye. Oh, poor old Tigers. Poor old Tigers. All right, so we'll have a look at their... we know who's missing from them. So, I don't know. Spencer Linu, he's a big lot. Like, I think he's the best prop coming off the bench in the game. Like, he really is. But they've just won so many games without him, and they've just won so many games where he hasn't really impacted the game. But they will miss him. Like, they will miss him. He brings a lot of energy. He's fast. Like, it might be one of those ones where, yeah, he doesn't like impact the scoreboard or anything like that. But maybe we see, you know what I mean, how much impact. Sometimes you don't know how good a player is until they go. You know what I mean? Like, sometimes you think, it's no big loss, and then you're like, geez, we missed him. So have to wait and see there. But now Stephen Crichton for me, like, Tyler May will come in, I assume. Critter, he's a freak, man. He's an absolute freak. But if you're going to lose a position, that was the one. Like, they couldn't afford to pay him $850. They got Tiny there. They got Alamotti now, and they got Peachy as well. Like, that's still some freaky players. Like, it's just, they're all plug and play centers. They don't have to overplay their hand. If they defend well and just run good, you know what I mean? Just play simple. They don't have to be heroes. They don't have to do the intercepts, all that sort of stuff. So I don't think they'll miss Stephen Crichton in the regular season, like, at all. But will they miss him in the grand final when they're down? Will they miss him, you know what I mean, to make that big play, to make that big tackle, to those 2 kicks he put in at the end of the year, against the Broncos to force restarts were just class. Not many centers could do that, man. And will they miss him then? Will they miss him in the big moments? Because, like I said, round 1 through 27, you know what I mean? I'll be like, whatever. Like, whoever slots in there will be, Penrith are still Penrith. But will they miss him? What if they are playing Broncos again in the grand final, semi-final, and they are down 18-6 and there's 10, 15 minutes to go? You don't have that luxury of just feeding Crichton or him just snatching a field, an intercept pass or something like that, or forcing the dropout that he's done in the past. So I think they could miss him, but I just don't think it'll be till the finals. And it's a bit of an odd one. It's they could massively miss him. Like, we could be sitting back and going, they lose the grand final or a semi-final by 6 points, and you go, ooh, Crichton probably would have scored a try in this game, and then you're like, damn, they really miss Crichton. Or they could just smoke everyone and it's business as usual, and we have to crown them the best team of all time. So, again, if we go back, we have a little look-see. I mean, as far as minor premiership goes, I'm not going to... Just looking at their draws and the runs home, I would have to give it to Penrith. In fact, I might even just... After looking at that, slap a 500 down on that. I do think they will get the minor premiership. If you put 100 on each, you'd actually win a little money if just one of those 2 won. Not really worth waiting a year to make a few $100. So, so I would pick Penrith there, just because Broncos, like I said, tough run at the start of the year while they're figuring everything out. You know what I mean? Broncos, last year they won 7 or 8 in a row to start with. Just figuring everything out, their edges, no Catewell, no Flagler, no all that. I mean, I'm not saying they're going to, but they could. I mean, I actually see them winning this game because Roosters are notoriously bad starters. They could drop this game if everything's going crazy. They could drop this game. They could win this game. They could win that game. You know, they could just go like 3-3, which is fine. They'll they're still set up pretty good. But there is a world where Broncos start like 3-3. So whereas I see Penrith probably more than likely starting 5-1, 4-2. You know, so very winnable, very winnable. Obviously, I know that's a bit of a challenge, but very winnable. You know, like it's just a little bit, and then they got the bye as well, round 6. So yeah, I'd probably. Last year, Broncos got out to the hot start and Penrith ran them down. It might go the other way. Penrith might get to a little bit of a hotter start and Broncos might sort of maybe a little ground on them towards the end. We'll have to wait and see. But, man, it's going to be damn good. I can't wait. So, yeah, that's sort of my picks, guys. I genuinely think Broncos, Penrith both still have enough strike to go 1 and 2, but I'd be shocked if either one's out of the top 4. But, you know, like Roosters could just have a crazy year from hell and maybe they finish second or third or fourth, something like that. Rabbitohs are crazy too, so you can't write off the Melbourne Storm. Like I said, the top 4 is going to be so hard to pick this year. I mean, North Queensland Cowboys, in my opinion, have a top 4 roster. Sharkies, because of the draw and how good their roster is, top 4. We saw Warriors, there's no reason. They've added to the team that finished in the top 4. And then you look at Newcastle Knights, they looked like a top 4 team the second half of the year. Parramatta Eels, if you actually look at their team on paper, they actually pretty much have a top 4 roster. See, it's a crazy year, man. It's a crazy year. So, however, with the draws, with how everything's played out, with how strong their rosters were, I see Penrith and Broncos being the powerhouses, and then we might have to throw a team or two in there as well. Obviously, like the Roosters, Bunnies, Warriors, whoever it may be, maybe North Queensland as well. I think they could shake things up a little bit, but my personal pick is I think these two teams are still going to be guns. All right, so that's it, lads. Thank you all so much for watching. If you got to the end, you're an absolute legend, and bring it on, guys. 4 weeks, let's go.